I'll be talking about the Conjuring House. I mean, I'm pretty sure a lot of people have watched this movie, which I mean, yeah, like it is based on a true home, well, true story. And so they actually have like three different names for the house aside from just calling it the Conjuring House. So like it's called the Old Arnold Estate. It's also known as the Dexter Richardson House and the Old Brook Farm. But when I was like looking up information, I could just mostly like find it like by putting in the Old Brook Farm, and it's located in Harrisville, Rhode Island, and it was built in 1736. So this house is like all that. So it was passed down to the John Arnold family through marriage. And it's all like it is considered to be like one of the most haunted homes in America. Like the house is like a quaint little colonial home. But like for me personally, any home that looks like this, like made out of wood from the outside, I think it's scary as I wouldn't go stay there because like it looks like a cabin out in the woods where you're gonna get murked by Michael Myers. So like it is a pretty big property too. Like there's actually like a small creek by. The guy John Arnold, his wife, like supposedly she hung herself from like in the barn like when she was like 93 years old. And yeah, in the creek like there's been a
Mm.
couple like people who have drowned in there too. And
Oh.
I was reading that supposedly there are other people who hung themselves on the property, other people that they got poison on the property too. But like I really couldn't find out a lot on
Mhm.
those. And also like some of that information was brought by like the family I'm gonna talk about, like the wife, but there's like no actual like detailed information about who they were, like what they themselves or if they were actually hung by other people. And also there was a guy who rose on the property. He was actually part of the Arnold family. I forgot what was his name, but he was as part of the Arnold family. He decided to go to a bar. He got face and everything and was walking home in the snow. And I guess he got exhausted. He was like, I'm gonna lean over here by this tree, and he froze to death. I was reading that they were like trying to say that he died under mysterious circumstances, but it's because he drank too much. And then also supposedly there was like an 11-year-old girl. Her name was like Prudence Arnold. I couldn't find a picture of her. But this one's kind of sad because she was like murdered and she was sexually assaulted, and it's supposed and they said it was like a farmhand, a guy who worked on the property who did that to her. But yeah, I couldn't really
Oh.
so like apparently like eight whole generations of the Arnold family like lived at the property, and a lot of them did die on the property. They do try to say that they died under mysterious circumstances, but I actually think a handful of them died from natural causes. If you guys watch the movies, like if you are familiar with the Conjuring movies and everything, like you know, like the most famous one they always talk about is Bathsheba Sherman. So she was rumored to be a witch. She had like three kids who like
Mhm.
died really young. And then like one time while she was caring for somebody else's baby, the baby died. And when they did an autopsy on the baby, they found like it had like a little like needle like wound in the back of the head, like here, like by the occipital bone, like at the base.
Yeah.
And yeah, so they're like, "Oh, it looks like a large sewing needle was placed there." So they really thought that she was like killing young kids to like because supposedly that she was like so into her beauty. Like
Oh.
that's like the oldest picture apparently of the house. And this lovely young woman is Bathsheba Sherman. I don't know, like yeah, she was like really pretty, and she was like she wanted to keep her youth, and like she wanted to stay beautiful and everything like that. So that's why they thought she was doing witchcraft and then she was sacrificing these kids to Satan. So like they did take her to trial, but she was later acquitted because they didn't really find a lot of evidence to
Mhm.
hold her accountable for the death of the kid. And she like after that she just lived her life, and she ended up dying at the age of 73 in 1885.
Damn.
And then, like, years later, like, in the 1970s, oh, the next slide is how she's portrayed in the movie. So this is how they make her look in the movies, all scary. So then, like, this is the Perot family, and they moved into the home in the 1970s, and they actually lived here for 10 years. I have like, well, they lived here for 10 years because they couldn't afford to move like later on because they were like financially unstable.
Mhm.
But they like started like experiencing like a lot of things. Like first it started off with just like little things, like things were being moved, they're going missing. They would hear sounds from like empty rooms, and like also like doors would close on their own, or like the doors would like completely lock up on their own. And they also said that they would hear voices. They would even like start smelling like this like rotten flesh in the house.
Oh gosh.
And then
Ew.
yeah, and, like, with more time, it started getting even worse, so, like, people like, they were being woken up, like, at 5:15 in the morning, like, everybody, because their beds were shaking, and then, like, also one of the daughters, she would, like, also, like, get a lot of the, activities around her, like, she would hear, like, a lot of, like, noises in her room, like, she would get woken up the most, but in reality, it was also the mom who would get, like, basically the end of the stick because like
Mhm.
she would end up being like waking up with bruises. Like she even woke up at one point with like her legs, like she had like marks like that, like she was being pricked by needles. She's also the one who like dug into a lot of the home history, and she's the one who also like says that it was that it's that has to be Bathsheba Sherman who's the one haunting the home. And like even the daughters, like as they grow up, like they did write books and they were saying like the spirit of Bathsheba like felt like she was the mistress of the house, that she was fighting against the mom. Basically, like that's why the mom was getting the worst part of it. So since it was getting so bad, they did contact Ed and Lorraine Warren. Ed and Lorraine, they're known demonologists around the world. And then Lorraine, she's a medium, so she can speak to spirits.
So apparently, like, well, their backstory, is that Ed he grew up in a haunted house, like a really, really haunted house, and the stuff that he experienced was very, very like traumatic to him.
Okay.
So he said that like his parents tried to get help wherever they could, and nobody wanted to help him. Like they would have priests come over and stuff like that, but you know, like priests just come over there and they just bless the house, say a prayer. But sometimes the demons get mad. They're
Uh,
just like "f you" and your freaking prayer. Like I'll do whatever the I want. And he says that basically he wanted to do that. Like he wanted to help people who were going through the same thing he went through as a child. So that's why he studied
mhm,
demonology. And then that's when because he was in the army, and then when he came back, he met Lorraine. Lorraine was a psychic. She also experienced a bunch of stuff like that, and apparently like they hit it off. So they basically started what the company is, Ed and Lorraine Warren. But it's mainly I guess to help him, like not to help him, to help people out who were like him.
the Perron family ended up like contacting them because they needed, because it just got so bad and like the mom was getting the worst of it, and they wanted to get rid of whatever it was in their house. So they contacted them and like they did come visit the home a couple times, like trying to like cleanse the house and everything.
Mhm.
And but like at one point like they performed a seance and it just went wrong because I guess when you do the seance with a medium, like the spirits are supposed to go through the medium, but in this case, it ended up going through Carolyn, the wife. Yeah, the Carolyn Perron. So it ended up going through her. So instead, like, and she was just ended like supposedly she was like levitating, like in her chair or something like that. And she even ended up getting like sent into the next room, like flying, like she went flew because of how hard she basically flew into the next room. She passed out. Like her husband thought she was dead, and like I guess he was trying to rush over to her. Lorraine and Ed ended up getting in between him and her, that because they're like, no, if you touch her, you're gonna end up being possessed. um like this, yeah, that the spirit was gonna end up entering him instead. And
Uh-huh.
Ed, he ended up punching Ed in the face and kicking them out.
Damn.
Yeah,
Damn.
'cause, like, it got like, that was, like, the worst one, and, like,
Mhm.
after that, they didn't really go anymore because of that altercation. Like, yeah, and they still stayed living there, like, till 1980 and then finally moved out. But, yeah, like, they just stayed living there because, like, they couldn't afford to move out. And then, like, there was this lady who did purchase it, like, after. With her, like, I was reading, like, she had no issues living there whatsoever, like, everything was fine, and everything only like shit hit the fan when the movie came out in 2013 because
Uh,
people were trying to get onto the property and everything like that. And like she actually like debunked a whole bunch of like the information that Carolyn had looked up. John Arnold's wife, she actually didn't hang herself in the barn. She did die at the age of 93, but she died in a separate home. There were two or three kids that did drown in the creek on the property, but like that was about it. And also like there weren't any hangings in the barn. I think she said like that Carolyn had did say at one point that they hung themselves in the attic, but there was also no record of that too. And also with the poisonings, and yeah, and like the one that was true is the guy who froze to death on the property. And then the 11-year-old girl, Prudence, you know how I mentioned that the house is also known as the Dexter Richardson house?
Yeah.
Mm.
So the guy actually didn't ever own a home. He owned a home in Michigan. And the 11-year-old girl like actually was part of his family. She actually wasn't part of this Arnold family, and she was actually found in a bedroom in his home. So so that girl did actually get murdered, and she did get R-worded and like in real life, but not in that property. But then, like in 2019, the house got bought by Corey and Jennifer Heisen. So they actually bought this house, and they do say it's haunted. And thanks to Elman, like who sent me this awesome video. Yeah, so like they bought the house, and they do say it's haunted. And in this video, they're talking about how like the Perron family kids, they would see like men, like like in dressed up as soldiers, and then like they actually had people come onto the property where they checked around the area, and they actually found like bodies buried on the property. But and like it's so interesting because yeah, the girl said that, and the mom never ever brought up anything about there being like dead soldiers on the property or anything. She brought up other stuff that didn't happen on the property, but her kids actually saw ghosts that were like buried on the property. Yeah, and like they do talk about like seeing kids there, so I do think it's the kids that drown on the like in the creek,
Mhm.
that have to be there. Yeah, like so they see those, and they see like a spirit of a woman who passes by. That one I couldn't figure out like who it could be. Then like even with like reading everything I read, like I honestly don't think it was Bashida who like at all was
Mm.
like haunting the house or anything, because even like I also read like some of like I read another article that talked about her where so she lived on the property, but she didn't live
Mhm.
in the house. She lived on the
Mm.
property, and then by the time she passed away, she had like moved off the property. So she died in a whole ass separate house. And she was
Yeah.
like
Mm.
never actually involved with the family during her time that she was living there.
Yeah, ves que
Mhm.
they were saying that they would feel like hurt, like pins, like kind of like
Yeah.
needle things.
Yeah.
So it's like that's the only thing that ties her to, that paranormal stuff.
Yeah, but
Mhm.
honestly for that, I think like okay, cuz like so her three kids, yeah, like they died young, and but they were said to also be like have died of natural causes. And
Mhm.
I
Hmm.
think the baby that died in her care because it wasn't her baby. And like if you're gonna stick at somebody with a needle, like I think like for this baby, because like baby skins are so soft and like everything, and even like you have to be careful with their head because their head isn't fully formed even after they're born. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually think that maybe they set her up because she already had a history that her kids have died young. There were already rumors
Yeah.
of her being like a witch and everything, that she was sacrificing them. So I actually think whose ever baby this was, like I think like maybe they did that on purpose so that the baby would die in her care. So like
That's
before,
Mm.
because the
true.
baby ended up dying in her care. Like how is it like that when she has a baby, the baby ended up I think like it was said to have like seizures and stuff like that occur, and
Uh huh.
like for them to have like head injuries, like yeah, it could show like hours later. Like it's like that's when like if you shake a baby, and even if you lay them down afterwards, like you wouldn't be able to tell until hours later. What I like about this couple, they're also paranormal investigators.
That I like the fact that like they are, ghost hunters,
Mhm.
because it allows other ghost hunters to go into their house. Like they're
Yeah.
more than happy to have people go in there and be like, "Hey, come into my house and investigate. Come stir more shit up." They said that they were only able to live in one part or like one
Mhm.
side of the house
Yeah.
because the activity was so freaking bad. Like they
Mhm.
couldn't sleep in their rooms. They had to sleep. I think it was in like the living room kitchen area.
Yeah.
Because as soon as they would go in there, like doors would slam. Like they would hear doors slamming. They would hear like footsteps, stuff like that. In the first day that they left the door open, like to the rest of the house, they ended up seeing like a shadow figure, like kind of peeking his head, and then it went back
Yeah.
in. From what I saw, is that there's like actual like demons in there, like
That I would believe, yeah. But I don't
Yeah.
think it's that Bashida lady. Like I said, her kids actually saw people in soldier costumes, oh, dressed as
mhm,
soldiers, and this couple actually found like
the grave
people.
site.
Yeah, they found it
Yeah,
under like they found them buried.
yeah,
Nuts. And it's like, and they also like pulled up a bunch of information about like how there was like some war in that area that broke out. So like that makes a lot of sense to like why there's soldiers on their property that
Mhm.
were
yeah.
buried. So it's like there must be something else that maybe happened before the Arnold family took over the home,
Mhm.
because
Mhm,
like I said, like it was passed down through marriage, but
mhm.
like and the house was built in 1936, and I think it was until like years later, like in the 1800s, that they actually got the house in the family.
Like
Okay.
basically, one of the stuff is that like she mentioned like kids dying, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
And they say that they are three kids in the house. Like you could go up to the attic and they'll play with you. Like they'll take like little balls. Like paranormal people take like little balls that light up when you touch it. And they take it up there, they put it, and they like touch it so it lights up. Or like they roll a ball and then like it'll roll back. When they were down
No.
at the basement, like after when they were like kind of like doing their own investigation, just the two
Oh,
guys, that one is a pretty powerful one. If you
yeah.
know who he is, I'm not gonna say the name. He's very well known. He's a
Mhm.
very well known demon, and for him to be there and make them say his name like 3 4 times,